Lyra stared out over the silver forests of her homeworld. Lyra Prime, her heart heavy. The trees shimmered in shades she had never fully named, their leaves glowing faintly with bioluminescence. For most of her life, this world had been her sanctuary. But now that sanctuary felt like a cage. She had been chosen for a ritual that had been whispered about for generations, feared by every Lyrian who heard the stories. It was called the bonding rite, and it required pairing with a foreign species, a human. Humans were said to be reckless, wild, and unpredictable. Tales from the few who had met them described their strange habits, their loud voices, and their tendency to act before thinking. And yet the elders claimed that human strength, intelligence, and adaptability were unmatched. For Lyra, the idea was horrifying. The thought of letting a human into the sacred process of her people's future made her stomach twist. She clenched her hands, feeling the soft ridges of her scales pressed together. She could still remember her mother's warning. Do not let fear make your choice, but do not let curiosity blind you either. She had never been curious about humans, only wary. The announcement had come during the council's gathering. Lyra had sat stiffly on the raised dais, listening to the elders speak. Her name had been called, and in that instant she had felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Lyra of House Terra, the High Elder had intoned, his voice smooth but commanding. You are chosen to represent our people in the upcoming bonding rite. Your partner will be a human. The gasp that swept through the chamber had been almost audible, though no human ears were present to hear it. Lyra's mind had gone blank. She had wanted to protest, to say she was unfit, but the ritual was a duty, a responsibility. Her own hesitation had been met with the cold, unwavering gaze of the council. Now, as the first ships from the human fleet descended upon Lyra Prime, Lyra could see them through the forest canopy. They moved with a grace that surprised her, though she hated to admit it. Their craft were utilitarian yet streamlined, and unlike anything she had seen in her people's history. She turned as a low hum signaled the landing. A single transport ship touched down on a flat clearing near the forest edge. The hatch opened and out stepped a figure that made Lyra's heart skip a beat, not from attraction, but from sheer, unexpected presence. The human was tall, broad-shouldered, with a calm, steady gaze. His uniform was simple, adorned only with symbols of rank and achievement. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that somehow demanded attention without shouting. Lyra stiffened, wary. This was Captain Elias, the human soldier chosen to participate in the bonding rite. He approached slowly, hands at his sides, eyes scanning the surroundings without judgment. Lyra noticed that he did not move like the reckless humans of legend. There was no swagger, no overconfidence, just poise. Greetings, he said, his voice deep but gentle. I am Elias. I understand I am to be your partner. Lyra's claws flexed at her sides. I am Lyra, she said, her voice measured, cool. And I do not understand why my people would trust a human. Elias nodded, as if he expected her doubt. I cannot change what your people think, but I can show you who I am. That is the only truth I can offer. Something in the simplicity of his words caught Lyra off guard. Humans, she thought, were never this straightforward. They lied, they boasted, they exaggerated their own deeds. Yet here stood one who seemed honest. The elders had arranged the first meeting in a ceremonial grove, a place of silver trees and sparkling streams sacred to the Lyrians. The air was thick with pollen that glowed faintly in the dim light, making the place feel almost magical. Lyra led the way, moving with careful precision, her tail brushing against the soft grass. Elias followed without hesitation, stepping lightly as if he belonged. You walk like you belong here, she said, trying to hide her surprise. I walk where I'm needed, he replied simply. They reached a small clearing where the ritual would begin. 2 pedestals marked the starting points for their exercises. The elders had made it clear, before any bonding could occur, the candidates must spend time together, learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, and prove that trust could exist across the species divide. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Trust. That is a human word, isn't it? We Lyrians speak of respect, of understanding. Trust comes later. Elias smiled faintly. Perhaps we can use both words. I am willing to learn your way, if you are willing to learn mine. For the first time, Lyra felt the stirrings of something unfamiliar, curiosity. The first exercise was simple, a test of coordination and patience. They were given a floating orb that required both participants to guide it through a series of holographic gates without touching the edges. The orb would emit a soft chime if handled incorrectly. Lyra had expected the human to fumble. She had imagined him clumsy and impatient, but he did not fumble. He studied the orb carefully, then mirrored her movements with uncanny precision. "You are careful," she said, her voice tinged with surprise. "And you are precise," he replied. "I did not expect that either." They spent the next hour moving the orb, silently communicating through gestures and eye contact. It was awkward at first, then smoother. Lyra noticed that Elias did not try to dominate the task. He adapted, adjusted, and anticipated her actions. By the time they finished, the orb hovered perfectly at the final marker. The elders nodded in approval, though they said nothing. Lyra felt her pride stir, not at succeeding, but at realizing she had underestimated him. "You are unlike any human I imagined," she admitted quietly, her tail twitching nervously. Elias looked at her, his expression soft but steady. "And you are unlike any Lyrian I imagined. I think we may learn from each other." The rest of the day passed with more exercises, simple tasks of cooperation, observation, and problem-solving. Each time, Lyra found herself forced to reconsider her assumptions. Humans were not reckless. They were adaptable, resourceful, and capable of subtle intelligence. Elias did not try to impress her. He simply acted with purpose, listening and learning as much as guiding. When the sun set, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold, Lyra walked to the edge of the clearing. She looked at the human soldier standing silently beside her. "I do not know if I can ever fully trust humans," she said softly, almost to herself. "Perhaps trust is not the goal," Elias replied. "Perhaps understanding is enough to start." Lyra considered this. Understanding? Yes. She could allow herself that. She did not have to like humans yet. She did not have to welcome them. But she could learn. She could observe. She could begin to see the truth beyond the stories she had been told. And as she looked at Elias, standing quietly with a calm determination, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. The first day had ended, but a journey had begun. Lyra still dreaded the ritual, still feared the idea of allowing a human into the sacred process of her people's lineage. Yet, for the first time, she wondered if the human beside her, this soldier, might not be what she expected. Perhaps she thought the greatest lesson was not about humans at all. Perhaps it was about herself. The stars began to shine over Lyra Prime, twin moons rising in the sky. Lyra took a deep breath, letting the crisp night air fill her lungs. Tomorrow she would face Elias again. Tomorrow she would continue the exercises, and perhaps, just perhaps, she would begin to see that humans might not be the monsters of legend. The forest whispered around her, silver leaves brushing against one another in the gentle night wind. Lyra felt a quiet stirring inside, a flicker of curiosity, of challenge, of something that could grow into trust. The morning sun rose over Lyra Prime, casting a warm glow on the silver forests. Lyra moved through the tall, glowing trees, her mind still buzzing from the lessons of the first day. Captain Elias had proven himself surprisingly careful, intelligent, and even patient. She did not fully trust humans, but something inside her was shifting. She arrived at the ceremonial grove to find Elias already waiting. He stood beside a crystal-clear stream, observing the water's flow as though it held some secret lesson. "Good morning," Lyra said, her voice cautious but slightly softer than the day before. "Good morning." Elias replied with a faint smile. I hope you slept well. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Sleep? Humans seem to need it constantly. I would have thought you would be restless. Elias chuckled lightly. Rest allows focus. You would understand if you spent one night trying to calculate every possibility for survival. Lyra felt a flicker of amusement. Perhaps humans were not as chaotic as the stories said. The elders had arranged today's exercises to test adaptability and communication. Lyra and Elias were led to a small, natural arena filled with floating rocks, shifting platforms, and streams of luminous energy. Their task was to navigate from one side to the other without touching the energy flows, which could cause a temporary disorientation if disturbed. This is a test of patience and awareness, one of the elders explained. You must work together or the challenge will fail. Lyra eyed Elias warily. I do not need a human to complete this. I am skilled enough. Perhaps, Elias replied calmly. But some challenges are easier with two minds. Reluctantly, Lyra stepped onto the first platform. She moved gracefully, balancing on the narrow surface as though it were solid ground. Elias followed, surprisingly careful, his movements precise. Lyra realized that he was not only observing her actions, but anticipating them, adjusting his balance to match hers. They reached the first energy stream. It pulsed gently, a faint hum filling the air. Lyra stepped forward and the platform shifted slightly under her weight. She glanced at Elias. He held out his hand not to grab her but to indicate timing. Lyra hesitated, then moved in sync with him. The hum shifted to a soft, approving chime. Impressive, she admitted, her voice quiet. Elias nodded. You are precise and aware. It makes coordination easier. As they continued, Lyra noticed more than his skill. Elias had a patience she had never seen in humans before. When mistakes happened, he did not scold or grow frustrated. He simply corrected the course, analyzing and adjusting with calm logic. Slowly, Lyra began to relax. After the exercise, they rested by the stream. Lyra dipped her hand into the glowing water, watching ripples spread across the surface. You adapt well, she said finally. Most humans would have panicked by now. Elias shrugged. Humans have a reputation for panic, yes, but many of us learn to control it. It is not instinct alone that guides action. It is choice. Lyra studied him. Choice. That word resonated with her. Lyrians valued instinct and tradition, yet she had always wondered if there was space for conscious decision-making. Could humans truly understand responsibility in a way her people did not? Tell me about your people, she said cautiously. Not legends or stories, but you. What do humans value? Elias paused, watching the sunlight dance on the water. We value creativity, persistence, and care for others. We make mistakes, sometimes grave ones, but we try to learn. We do not have rituals like yours, but we have principles, guidelines that help us survive and thrive together. Lyra considered this. It was strange hearing about another species in such personal terms. For so long, humans had been monsters or objects of curiosity. Now she realized they were something more, intelligent, capable, and aware. The next exercise tested problem-solving under pressure. A small device hovered in the air, projecting a series of symbols. The task was to arrange them into a pattern that would open a portal to the next area. Lyra moved quickly, analyzing symbols with her innate Lyrian intelligence. Elias observed, then offered suggestions that were unconventional but effective. You think differently, she remarked. And you think precisely, he countered. Together, we cover gaps that one mind alone might miss. By the end of the task, the portal opened. Lyra stepped through first, then Elias. For the first time, she felt that human ingenuity could complement her own abilities. As the day wore on, Lyra noticed subtle moments that unsettled her. Elias did not dominate conversations. He listened when she spoke, truly listened, asking questions that showed understanding rather than judgment. When she corrected him, He adapted gracefully. When he shared knowledge, he did so without arrogance. During a quiet break, they sat on a ledge overlooking a valley of glowing flora. Lyra hesitated, then asked, "Do humans form bonds easily?" Elias considered this. "We can, but it depends on effort, understanding, and respect. A bond is not given, it is built." Lyra felt a strange warmth. She had expected humans to be forceful, arrogant, or selfish. Elias was none of those things. He was steady, considerate, and capable. Perhaps there was more to this ritual than she had feared. Their conversation drifted to lighter topics. Lyra tried to teach Elias how to whistle through Lyrian scales, a skill that required precise control of vocal resonance. Elias failed miserably, at first producing a series of awkward sounds that made Lyra stifle a laugh. "You are hopeless," she teased, a smile tugging at her lips. "I am learning," he replied earnestly, attempting again with comical results. "But it seems humans are not naturally attuned to all sounds." They laughed together, a sound that felt unusual yet comforting. Lyra realized that laughter was not exclusive to Lyrians, and humans were capable of more than she had imagined. By evening, the elders called them to the grove for a reflection ceremony. Candidates were expected to meditate on the day's lessons and share their thoughts. Lyra hesitated but found herself speaking aloud. "I underestimated humans," she admitted. "I thought they were reckless, impulsive, and dangerous. But I see now that they can be disciplined, considerate, and intelligent." Elias nodded. "And I underestimated the wisdom of Lyrians. I thought your ways might be rigid, difficult to understand. But I see depth, logic, and purpose in everything you do." The elders watched silently, approvingly. Lyra felt a sense of pride, not for herself, but for the realization that understanding was possible. She had feared the human soldier, yet she now respected him. That night, as Lyra returned to her quarters, she reflected on the day. Elias had not changed her entire opinion of humans, but he had opened a door she did not know existed. She could consider the possibility that humans were capable of partnership, trust, and even admiration. Lying on her bed of silver fibers, she closed her eyes and thought of Elias. He was patient, intelligent, and kind in ways her people rarely acknowledged in outsiders. She could feel herself shifting, moving from fear to curiosity. And curiosity, she realized, could be dangerous or liberating. The first bond was not yet formed, but a foundation had been laid. Lyra did not yet welcome the ritual, but she no longer dreaded the human's presence with the same intensity. A spark had been lit, one that could grow into something far greater than fear. Elias, in his quarters, was also thinking of Lyra. She was cautious, sharp, and wary, yet her intelligence and determination intrigued him. Humans had long been capable of learning from others, but in Lyra, he saw a depth of thought and skill that he admired. He wondered if she would ever see humans not as outsiders, but as equals. The days ahead promised more challenges, more exercises, and more moments of tension and cooperation. But for the first time, both Lyra and Elias could sense the possibility of something extraordinary. A bond not of duty or tradition, but of understanding, mutual respect, and choice. The next morning, Lyra Prime woke under a sky painted in soft lavender and gold. Lyra stretched her limbs and took in the familiar scent of the silver forest. She had learned much from the past days, about humans, about herself, and about the possibility of trust. Yet a part of her remained cautious. Humans were unpredictable, and the elders had warned that the bonding rite would test them in ways neither species could foresee. Elias met her at the grove as usual. He seemed calm, almost serene, but Lyra noticed a tension in his shoulders. Perhaps he too understood that the next challenge would not be simple. "The elders have prepared a trial," Elias said as they walked toward the arena. "It seems more physical than before." Lyra's tail twitched. She had anticipated mental exercises and coordination tests. But now she sensed something deeper, a test of teamwork, intuition, and courage. When they arrived, the scene that greeted them was unlike anything they had encountered. A vast valley stretched before them, its floor covered in dense silver foliage. At its center stood a grove of towering crystalline trees, known as the heartwood trees, sacred to the Lyrians. The elders' instructions were clear. The trees were to remain untouched, yet they had to retrieve a sample of the glowing fruit from the highest branches. "This is not simple," Lyra said. "The heartwood trees are fragile. One wrong step and the ritual, or worse, the grove, could be ruined." Elias nodded. "Then we must work together, carefully, deliberately." They approached the first tree. Its branches reached high into the sky, shimmering with light. Lyra leapt effortlessly from one low branch to another, her claws gripping with ease. Elias followed, slower but precise, carefully adjusting his weight to match the rhythm of the tree. Lyra glanced down. The valley floor was dotted with streams of luminous energy, reminders that even the smallest mistake could have consequences. "Do not touch the energy," she warned. "It can cause disorientation." "I am aware," Elias said calmly, stepping with measured care. "And I will follow your lead." The first challenge was minor, but the next was far more difficult. One of the trees had a branch tangled with another, its glowing fruit just out of reach. Lyra tried to maneuver alone, but the branch shifted under her weight. She froze, heart pounding, realizing that she could not retrieve the fruit safely on her own. Elias stepped beside her. "Here," he said, extending a hand, not touching her directly, but ready to support her if necessary. "We can balance together." For the first time, Lyra felt the reality of working alongside a human. She had feared losing control, but Elias moved with respect, allowing her to lead while offering support. Together they shifted their weight, balancing carefully on the swaying branches. At last, Lyra plucked the fruit, and they descended safely. Elias carried it back to the base, placing it gently on a pedestal for inspection. The elders observed in silence, their eyes filled with approval. "Your teamwork is improving," one elder said, voice calm but firm. "But the trial is not over." The valley suddenly shifted. A low rumble echoed through the ground, and glowing fissures opened across the forest floor. Energy streams surged upward unpredictably, forcing Lyra and Elias to act quickly. "Stay close," Lyra commanded. "We cannot afford mistakes." Elias nodded. "We move as one." The fissures were treacherous. Lyra leapt from one patch of stable ground to another, guiding Elias with precise gestures. For the first time she realized that humans could not only adapt but anticipate. Elias seemed to sense the timing of the energy bursts before they happened. "Impressive," she murmured, adjusting her own steps. Elias smiled faintly. "It is easier when I trust my partner." The words struck her. Trust. She had not expected to hear them nor to feel them so easily. But the truth was undeniable. They were stronger together than apart. As they neared the heartwood trees, a new obstacle appeared. A swarm of luminous insects emerged, drawn to the glowing fruit. They were harmless, but their movement created a chaotic distraction. Lyra's instincts urged her to flee, but Elias remained calm. "Focus on the fruit, not the swarm," he advised. "We can move slowly and deliberately." Lyra took a deep breath and followed his lead. Together they maneuvered past the swarm, each step synchronized, each movement deliberate. Lyra began to feel something she had never expected: admiration, not just for Elias's skill but for his composure, his ability to stay calm when fear or instinct would have taken over. Finally, they reached the final heartwood tree, tallest of all. Its fruit glowed brighter than the rest, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Lyra looked up, feeling a mixture of awe and hesitation. The branches were thin, swaying precariously in the wind. She knew she could climb alone, but the risk was too great. Elias looked at her. "We climb together." Lyra nodded. Carefully they began their ascent. Lyra led, showing Elias where to place his hands and feet. He followed with precision, never rushing, never faltering. Halfway up, a branch cracked slightly. Lyra froze. Elias steadied her without touching her directly, his voice calm. "You are capable," he said, "but do not underestimate the power of partnership." For the first time, Lyra truly understood what he meant. Partnership. Not dominance. Not fear. A shared goal, achieved through understanding and cooperation. They reached the top, plucking the luminous fruit with careful hands. Lyra felt a surge of pride, not for herself alone, but for what they had accomplished together. As they descended, the elders observed silently. Lyra could feel their approval, but more importantly, she could feel Elias's presence beside her. Steady, reliable, and trustworthy. When they finally returned to solid ground, the trial was complete. The elders gathered around, their expressions unreadable. "You have demonstrated not only skill but trust," the High Elder intoned. "Trust across species, trust across worlds. This is the essence of the bonding rite." Lyra looked at Elias, feeling an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. She had doubted him, feared him, and yet here he was, proving that humans could be honorable, capable, and courageous. Elias met her gaze. "We make a good team," he said simply. Lyra smiled, faint but genuine. Perhaps humans are not so reckless after all." The day ended with quiet reflection. Lyra and Elias sat by the stream, sharing stories of their respective worlds. Lyra spoke of Lyrian history, of the elders, of the sacred rituals. Elias shared tales of human innovation, teamwork, and the way humans thrived even in the most challenging environments. Through their conversation, Lyra realized that humans had strengths beyond physical power. They had creativity, resilience, and the ability to adapt to situations that would overwhelm other species. She began to understand why the elders had chosen a human for the bonding rite. As night fell, the twin moons rose over Lyra Prime, casting soft silver light across the forest. Lyra felt a sense of calm she had never known. She had faced challenges, tested her skills, and discovered that humans were not merely legends of chaos. They were allies, capable of greatness and worthy of respect. Elias remained silent beside her, observing the glowing forest. Lyra wondered what he was thinking. Perhaps, like her, he was reflecting on the day's lessons. Perhaps he was considering the bond that was slowly forming between them, not one imposed by duty, but one earned through cooperation and understanding. For Lyra, the greatest lesson was clear. Fear and prejudice could be overcome through experience. Trust, once carefully earned, could open doors to possibilities she had never imagined. And as she lay under the twin moons, listening to the gentle hum of the silver forest, Lyra allowed herself to imagine a future where humans and Lyrians could work together, not out of necessity but out of choice. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new moments of understanding. But for the first time, Lyra did not face them with dread. She faced them with hope, curiosity, and a growing sense of respect for the human soldier who had proven himself more remarkable than any legend she had ever heard. The bonding rite was far from over, but the first threads of trust had been woven. And in the heart of Lyra Prime, amidst silver forests and glowing streams, two very different beings began to see the potential for something extraordinary, a partnership not defined by fear but by understanding, respect, and the quiet strength of shared purpose. The sun rose slowly over Lyra Prime, casting golden light over the silver forests. The air was crisp, filled with the soft hum of the glowing flora. Lyra walked through the grove, her thoughts heavy but focused. The past trials with Captain Elias had changed her perception of humans. She no longer feared him outright, but she still carried the cautious weight of her people's traditions. Today, however, the elders had announced a new phase of the bonding rite. It was not a test of skill, strength, or coordination. It was a test of understanding and choice. As Lyra approached the ceremonial grove, Elias was already there, waiting calmly beside a small pool of crystal-clear water. His presence was steady, familiar now, though Lyra's heart still stirred. At the sight of him, "The elders call it the reflection trial," Elias said, his voice quiet. "It is meant to show what you truly value and what you are willing to choose." Lyra's tail flicked nervously. Choice had never been hers in the context of the ritual. Tradition dictated her actions. Duty dictated her obedience. But now, perhaps she could make her own decisions. The elders stepped forward. "Today, candidates will meditate and confront their inner doubts," the High Elder explained. "You must reflect on your fears, your expectations, and the possibility of partnership. Only then can you proceed with true understanding." Lyra hesitated. "And the human?" she asked, glancing at Elias. "Will accompany you," the elder replied. "Not as a guide, but as a witness to your decision. You must choose willingly, or the rite cannot continue." The grove was silent as the candidates began their reflection. Lyra sat on a smooth stone by the pool, closing her eyes. She let the soft hum of the forest fill her mind. Memories of the past days flashed before her. The exercises, the trials, the moments when Elias had remained calm while she had faltered, the times he had followed her lead without questioning it, the moments they had shared laughter. And then, doubt. She remembered the legends, the warnings, the fears of her people. Humans were unpredictable, reckless, and sometimes dangerous. Could she truly trust one? Could she allow a human, a foreigner, into the sacred process of her people's lineage? A soft voice broke through her thoughts. "Lyra," Elias said gently, sitting beside her. "It is your choice. You are not bound by fear, tradition, or expectation. You are free to decide." Lyra opened her eyes. Elias's gaze was calm, sincere. He did not pressure her, demand her trust, or assume it was given. Instead, he offered respect, patience, and understanding. I have been told what to fear," Lyra admitted quietly. "I have been told what to expect. But the truth is, different from what I imagined." Elias nodded. Humans can be unpredictable. But sometimes the greatest rewards come from taking risks and learning from each other. Choice is not easy, but it is the most honest path. Lyra considered this. She had spent her life adhering to rules, following the paths laid out by her elders. Yet here, with this human soldier, she felt a new possibility. A chance to act not out of fear, obligation, or tradition, but out of understanding and personal decision. She looked at Elias. "Why do you respect me? I have not yet chosen to accept this bond." "Respect is not given for acceptance," he said simply. "It is given for effort, for integrity, for courage. You have all three." The words struck Lyra deeply. For the first time, she felt that her choices could matter, not just in the context of the ritual, but in shaping her own destiny. The reflection continued. Lyra thought of the trials, the heartwood trees, the luminous insects, the energy streams. She realized that each challenge had been not only a test of skill, but a test of character. And in every moment, Elias had proven himself capable, not only as a human, but as a partner who respected her abilities and decisions. By midday, the elders signaled them to rise. They would now face a collaborative challenge, one that would show whether understanding and choice could manifest in action. A grove of young heartwood trees had been prepared, their fragile branches glowing softly. The task was to protect the grove from a simulated environmental disturbance, an artificial storm generated to mimic the planet's unpredictable weather. Lyra and Elias had to move carefully, shield the delicate flora, and ensure that no branches broke or fruit was lost. "This is not just skill," Lyra said, watching the storm coils swirl above the grove. "This is about judgment, trust, and timing." Elias nodded. "We proceed together. Observe first, then act. Decide together." The storm began. Gusts of wind rattled the glowing branches. Rain of soft energy droplets fell from above, threatening to dislodge the fruit. Lyra took the lead, signaling Elias to move certain branches with her guidance. He adjusted immediately, his hands precise, his movements coordinated with hers. At one point, a branch threatened to break under the wind. Lyra froze, unsure of how to stabilize it. Elias stepped closer, his hands gently supporting the branch without touching her. "We can manage this," he said calmly. "Together." For the first time, Lyra felt the full weight of partnership. It was not about control or dominance, it was about shared purpose, mutual respect, and trust that the other would act wisely. They worked in harmony, moving from tree to tree, carefully adjusting branches, shielding the fruit, and guiding each other through the storm. The elders watched in silence, their expressions unreadable. Hours passed and the storm subsided. Lyra and Elias stood amidst the grove, exhausted but victorious. Not a single branch had broken. The elders stepped forward. "You have demonstrated understanding," the High Elder said. "You have chosen action over fear, cooperation over isolation. You have shown that trust can exist between species, and that choice can be honored without coercion." Lyra looked at Elias, her heart full. She realized that her perception of humans had shifted completely. They were not reckless, chaotic, or untrustworthy. They were capable of courage, patience, and respect. Most importantly, they were capable of understanding her, not just as a Lyrian, but as an individual. Elias turned to her, his calm eyes meeting hers. "The choice is yours, Lyra. You are not bound by tradition. You are free to act, to decide, to embrace what you believe is right." Lyra took a deep breath. She thought of the past days, of the moments they had shared, of the trials and the laughter, of the lessons learned and the trust earned. She felt a warmth inside, a certainty she had never known. "I choose," she said finally, her voice steady. "I choose to trust you. Not because the ritual demands it, but because I believe in our partnership, in our understanding, and in the possibility of what we can achieve together." Elias's lips curved into a gentle smile. "Then we move forward together." The elders nodded in approval. Lyra felt a sense of pride, not for herself alone, but for the bond she had chosen to forge. It was not imposed, not dictated by tradition, not forced by duty. It was a choice made freely, with understanding and respect. That night, Lyra and Elias sat beneath the twin moons, watching the silver forests glow softly in the moonlight. Lyra felt a sense of peace she had never known. The trials were not over, but the foundation had been laid. The bond they shared was real, built on understanding, choice, and mutual respect. Elias spoke softly, breaking the silence. "You made your choice wisely, Lyra. The strength of your people is evident in your courage and insight. And you," Lyra replied, "have shown me that humans can be extraordinary. Not in legend, but in reality. You have proven that partnership is possible." They shared a quiet smile, the kind that spoke of unspoken respect and growing trust. Tomorrow would bring the final phase of the bonding rite, a ceremonial acknowledgement of the bond they had built. But tonight, under the glowing forests of Lyra Prime, they allowed themselves to simply be two beings from different worlds, connected by understanding, choice, and the quiet strength of shared purpose. The morning of the final day arrived on Lyra Prime with an unusual quietness. The silver forests shimmered under the twin moon's faint afterglow, and a gentle mist curled among the luminous trees. The air carried the soft hum of the planet, a soothing reminder of life and growth. Lyra walked through the grove, her heart steady, her mind clear. Today was the day of the bonding ceremony, the culmination of trials, reflection, and understanding. Beside her, Captain Elias moved with calm assurance. Unlike the nervous excitement Lyra had expected, he exuded a quiet confidence, as though he had always belonged on this planet. She looked at him and felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun. It was trust, respect, and the strange comfort of a companion who had proven himself more than any legend could describe. The elders had gathered, forming a circle around the central grove. Lyrian citizens, both young and old, stood respectfully at a distance, watching silently. This day was sacred, a union of species, a testament to understanding and cooperation. Candidates, the High Elder began, his voice deep and commanding, yet soft. You have completed trials that tested skill, judgment, trust, and understanding. You have demonstrated courage, patience, and the ability to make choices freely. Today we celebrate not only the bonding rite, but the bond you have forged together. Lyra felt her tail flick nervously. Ceremony was one thing, but ritual was another. It required her full participation, yet she no longer feared the outcome. She had chosen Elias willingly, not out of duty or tradition, but from recognition of his character and the partnership they had built. The ritual began simply. 2 pedestals carved from crystal and light stood before them. Lyra and Elias stepped forward, each placing a hand upon the pedestal. A gentle hum rose from the crystals, filling the air with resonance that vibrated softly through the grove. The energy from the heartwood trees responded, their branches glowing brighter as though acknowledging the union. You may speak your intentions aloud, the High Elder instructed. Lyra took a deep breath. I accept this bond, not out of obligation or tradition, but by choice. I recognize the strength, wisdom, and honor of my partner, and I commit to working together, with trust and understanding, for the future of our people. Elias mirrored her movements, placing his hand firmly upon the pedestal. I accept this bond as well. I honor Lyra's choices, her courage, and her guidance. Together, we will learn from each other, protect what is sacred, and grow as partners in respect and purpose. The crystal pedestals pulsed with light, and a wave of energy spread through the grove, washing over the gathered citizens. The heartwood trees shimmered in response, their luminous fruit glowing brighter than ever. A sense of harmony settled over the grove, a quiet affirmation of unity between 2 very different beings. Lyra stepped back, glancing at Elias. She noticed how naturally he fit among her people, not as an outsider, but as a partner. For weeks she had doubted humans, feared their unpredictability, and resisted the idea of bonding with one. Now, seeing Elias stand calmly, respectful and sincere, she understood why the elders had chosen a human for this sacred duty. Humans were capable of extraordinary empathy, courage, and understanding, qualities that complemented the strength and wisdom of her people. The elders guided them through the ceremonial motions. Lyra and Elias moved together with precision and care, their actions synchronized yet independent, symbolizing mutual respect. Each gesture, each step, reflected the journey they had taken, from mistrust and fear to understanding and partnership. As the ritual concluded, a wave of applause echoed softly through the grove, not loud or chaotic, but a respectful recognition of what had been achieved. Lyra felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not just for herself, but for the partnership they had built. This was more than a ritual. It was a foundation for something lasting. After the ceremony, the elders invited them to walk through the forest. The soft, bioluminescent glow illuminated the path ahead, highlighting the beauty of Lyra Prime in a way that seemed almost magical. Lyra noticed the way Elias observed the flora, not as a foreigner but as someone who appreciated it. She realized that humans too could honor beauty, tradition, and life. They reached a clearing where the youngest Lyrians were playing among the glowing streams. Lyra watched them and thought of the future, the possibility of teaching, guiding, and sharing knowledge. Perhaps one day children from both species could grow together, learning from one another's strengths and wisdom. Elias glanced at her. You were remarkable today, he said. Your confidence and clarity, it shows how far you've come. Lyra smiled faintly. I could not have done it without you. Not the ritual itself, but the trust, the guidance, the way you respected me. He nodded. We made this bond together, and that is the strength of it. Not one of us alone could have completed the trials. Together we are stronger. They walked in silence for a while, simply enjoying the calm. Lyra realized that the past weeks had changed her. She no longer feared humans. She no longer doubted her choices. She had discovered that courage, wisdom, and understanding could exist across species, and that the most remarkable achievements were often born from cooperation. The elders approached again, this time to offer their blessings. You have honored our traditions, faced trials with courage, and chosen understanding over fear. May your bond guide the future, not just of yourselves, but of your people. Lyra bowed slightly. Thank you. I will honor this bond with all my strength. Elias followed her gesture with respect. And I as well. As the ceremony concluded, the grove seemed to breathe with a gentle energy. The heartwood trees swayed, their glowing fruit casting shimmering reflections on the silver forest floor. Lyra and Elias stood side by side, not as student and soldier, not as alien and human, but as equals, partners and friends who had earned each other's trust. Later, as they walked back toward the settlement, citizens of Lyra Prime approached, offering smiles, respectful nods, and quiet congratulations. Lyra realized that humans could be accepted, even honored, within her society, not as invaders or outsiders, but as allies, capable of understanding, courage, and partnership. Elias glanced at her, a faint smile on his lips. I think this is only the beginning, he said. Lyra nodded. Yes, the bonding rite is complete, but our journey together has only just begun. There is much to learn and much to share. That night, beneath the twin moons, they stood in the grove one last time before returning to their quarters. The silver forests glowed softly around them, and Lyra felt a sense of peace and possibility she had never known. Humans and Lyrians, different yet complementary, could accomplish incredible things together. Elias reached for her hand, offering it as a gesture of partnership rather than ceremony. Lyra hesitated briefly, then accepted. Their hands met not with formality, but with quiet understanding. Together, Elias said. Together, Lyra agreed. In that simple word, they both felt the weight of what had been achieved. Not just a ritual completed, not just trials overcome, but a bond forged through understanding, choice, and respect. The story of two very different beings learning to trust one another was more than legend. It was real, and it was only beginning. As the forest whispered around them, Lyra realized that the future held endless possibilities. She could imagine the coming days filled with learning, exploration, and the sharing of knowledge between species. Humans were not monsters or chaotic forces. They were capable of greatness. And together, she and Elias could show their worlds just how powerful cooperation, respect, and friendship could be. The silver forest glowed under the twin moons, a symbol of life, hope, and the strength that comes from unity. Lyra and Elias stood side by side, looking forward to the adventures, challenges, and discoveries that awaited them.